Well, when I was about 7, my father took me down to see the official opening of the new bridge, which meant that a silver rivet was being inserted in the southwest corner of the bridge, by no other person than the Duke of York, who later became King George VI. Now, the Duke of York I saw putting the rivet in, and the rivet was on a silver washer, and whoever riveted the back of that, I don't know, but he definitely put the silver rivet in and the silver washer. It's still there to this day. It was for many years very visible because every time the bridge was painted, the silver rivet was left unpainted. But it came about at one time that the paint was inadvertently or otherwise put onto the silver rivet, and we couldn't see it to the same extent as before. And of course, now people were beginning to doubt that the silver rivet was there. But now it's being hidden, in a sense, by a road sign, so it's even worse. Unless you know where it is, you'll have difficulty in finding it.
Over the years, there have been 3 bridges across the river on this site. But further up at Hylton, another way of getting across the weir has been in existence for a long time.
There's been a ferry here since the 12th century, but in those days it was used as a cattle ferry for the drovers, bringing cattle south. It's a lot different to the scene that we see today with that huge bridge there. But when I was a boy, it was a place of great adventure. If my father brought me here, and we would go picking blackberries or playing in the woods. But the great joy was to have a ride across on the Penny Ferry. It used to be run by an oldish chap who had a rope which was rigged from that piece of machinery that's behind us there across to the other side, because the flow of the river meant that very often if he had a full load, it might take him away, so he used the rope to stop the boat going too far down. And it was a great adventure to be rowed across the river and then spend some time on the other bank and then to hail him to come across to pick you up again and pay another penny. Well, the weir has a tremendous history. It was known to the Romans even, but in the last 2 centuries, of course, it grew up for shipbuilding, and a great many smaller shipyards were sited on these very banks here.
Most of my family were either pilots, deep-sea mariners, or Foy Boatmen. My father was a Foy Boatman, and his father before him. We took hold of the ship. She towed us up the river, but your work was from picking the ship up to securing it fast. But I can recollect my father telling me when he used to sail all the way down to Flamborough Head to meet the ships coming into Sunderland. As the years went by, there was 40-odd Foy boatmen and 26 pilots controlling the river weir here. But in this basin, where we are now, it's commonly known as the swinging basin. The ships obviously drew in, the tugs alongside fore and aft, swung the ship, so she went up stern first, up to the coal berths or whatever she was doing. Behind me in the corner was the old North Dock, and I remember as a boy, probably 6, 7 or 8 year old, the schooners coming in, you know, the 3-mast, 4-masted schooners, unloading timber spars to Armstrong Addison's. When one does go back to the heyday, and you hear the clattering and the riveting, the pneumatic hammers and everything of the shipyards, J.L. Thompson's along here, Jackie Crown's. But when one does look back and recollect the amount of shipping that came in and out of this port, it is totally unrecognizable today.
Well, the war changed life at school straight away because school closed down for a while. And we, of course, thought that was wonderful. I was very frightened when the war started because in my ignorance, I was 9, I thought that immediately there would be Germans running about the streets with bayonets and those funny-shaped helmets on and rifles, and we would be killed. I really did believe that. There were a lot of scaremongers talking about gas attacks. That was very frightening. And we used to sit in school and have practice sessions with the gas masks. You had to put on your gas mask and sit, everyone, for half an hour.
Children were evacuated. They were sent to Yorkshire. We were bombed. We had all the roof and everything was off, and there was only our 2 rooms at the back that were intact. The bottom of our street, and those little cottages were absolutely wiped out, and there was a very bad one across the bridge.
We knew all the sounds. We knew the sounds of different kinds of guns, different airplanes. We watched with amazement when the big flares came down and lit up the whole town. But one night we saw this big red thing burning in the sky and slowly coming towards us, and because we didn't understand it, because we didn't know what it was, we were scared. Tracers were firing at it from small arms. And it was only when we realised that it was a burning barrage balloon that we stopped being scared. It was like, for a moment, it seemed as though it was the end of the world.
I remember going to school one day in the morning and coming back in the afternoon, and my friend Geoffrey Miller, whom I sat next to, was gone. His entire house had been exploded in Atkinson Road, and the whole family had been wiped out with a direct hit on the shelter.
It was most odd because in the street the blast had come round the corner in the most peculiar way, and there would be one house all the windows were out, the next house all the ceilings had fallen down, but the windows were intact. They said that blast worked in a very peculiar way, and obviously it did, because everybody had very bad damage, but it was all different. And the night that Binns was on fire, and everybody went down the next day and looked at it, and I remember the women standing looking at it and crying, you know, how dreadful it was that this lovely shop had gone. And the winter gardens, when that went, that really got to me, because that was one of my favourite places to go when I was little. The winter, all that glass, and it was all just gone. Dreadful. And
I can remember places like Lodge Terrace, where a shelter was bombed with terrible casualties. There was a very big bomb at Fulwell Crossing, which again caused a lot of casualties. The Blue Bell and the fire station were bombed. And then, of course, there's the famous bomb that blew the wagon out of the central station through the roof and into Joseph's leather store window. But Sunderland suffered very, very heavily during the war. It was a prime target because of the shipyards and because of the mines and the heavy industry that went on here. Hitler gave us our fair share.
The end of the war and a time for celebration. At last the lights went on all over town and the band began to play again. The illuminations were switched on along the seafront, and there was a wonderful sense of freedom as families were once more able to spend days on the beach, rekindling childhood memories.
Well, this beach behind me here was where life really began for me almost, because as tiny tots, my mother with 2 or 3 other families used to bring me down here on whatever sunny summer days we had. And I can remember we would sit in a sort of a semicircle of deck chairs, if we could find room that was, because there were hundreds and hundreds of people on this beach. And that memory, together with egg and tomato sandwiches and banana sandwiches with sand, because no matter how you tried, the sand always got in the sandwiches.
The beach was always crowded, of course, from Roker to Seaburn right along to Whitburn, always crowded, and there were tents to hire, deck chairs to hire. Most of your amusement came from watching people trying to put deck chairs up, you know, because people didn't go on holiday. They just couldn't afford holidays, and this was the big entertainment, and we considered that we were very, very lucky to have such a wonderful beach. Sometimes it was pretty cold, but when you were little, you didn't worry about that. And of course, the great thing was when you got down there, was the tide going to be in or out, and you know, did you get your proper position? And it was, I remember it as just wonderful. and everybody enjoying themselves, and it was simple pleasure that didn't cost much.
I can remember sand artists who drew pictures in the sand and you threw money over the promenade. That must have inspired me, because in 1935 the Daily Mail sponsored a sand competition on the beach for kids. They marked out plots of about 100 or 200 plots, and you had to do a design in the plot. And we were looking at the first winner of that competition for the grand sum of £2, which made me a very rich boy. My mother put it in the post office bank.
Some of the happiest days of my life were spent on the beach. Always in the one place my grandmother took me every Saturday in the summer. There again, it always seemed to be fine, to the Cat and Dog Steps area. And the funny thing was, we always went to the same spot. I think she had it measured, actually, where we sat. And everybody else did the same. You could see the same people with the same children on the same spot every Saturday.
The Cat and Dog Steps, the setting for endless hours of simple pleasure on the seafront at Roker, now lost out to the lure of package holidays in the Mediterranean.
Subscribe to our channel and we'll let you know when there's a new video to watch. The subscribe button is below the video next to the like, share and comment icons. To watch another video, just click on one of the pictures above the arrows now.